The studio lights of the view blazed with their usual intensity, reflecting off the polished floor and catching the glimmer of cameras set at every angle. The audience was already buzzing with excitement, the low hum of anticipation vibrating through the air like static. Today's guest was no ordinary celebrity. Mariah Carey, a global icon with a voice that had defined generations, was scheduled to appear on the show, and everyone knew that anything could happen. Her presence alone seemed to alter the energy of the room. Fans in the audience clutched their programs, phones ready to capture every moment, while the crew hustled behind the scenes, double-checking cameras, adjusting lights, and whispering last-minute reminders. "Stay ready," one producer muttered to another. "She's Mariah. Expect the unexpected." When Mariah Carey finally floated onto the set, it was as if time slowed for a moment. Draped in a sparkling gown that seemed to reflect the studio lights like liquid diamonds, she carried herself with a poised, almost ethereal confidence. Her hair was perfectly styled, cascading in soft waves, her makeup flawless, highlighting the intensity of her eyes. She waved gracefully to the audience, eliciting an eruption of applause and cheers that filled every corner of the studio. The hosts, meanwhile, exchanged glances. Joy Behar, sitting closest to the cameras, leaned forward with a sharp smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, her posture taut and alert, as if she were ready to pounce. There was a subtle tension in the air, a collision waiting to happen between Mariah's meticulously controlled public persona and Joy's reputation for pointed, unapologetic questioning. The show opened with the usual pleasantries. Michael and Sarah welcomed Mariah warmly, asking about her recent projects and upcoming performances. Mariah's voice, warm and melodic, filled the studio as she described her new tour plans and teased behind-the-scenes glimpses of her upcoming album. At first, the conversation was light, even charming. Mariah laughed at playful anecdotes, responded graciously to compliments, and projected an image of the superstar fans adored. The audience clapped politely, absorbed in the spectacle, feeling both the magic of her presence and the tension lurking beneath it. Joy, however, was already observing, calculating. She knew how to navigate celebrity interviews, and she sensed an opening to press further, to test the boundaries of Mariah's composure. It started subtly. Joy asked about the pressures of maintaining a career that had spanned decades. "Mariah, you've been in the spotlight for so long," she began, her tone casual but with an edge, "and fans watch your every move. How do you handle criticism or moments where public perception doesn't match reality?" Mariah's smile faltered just slightly, a flicker of discomfort crossing her eyes. She adjusted her posture, giving the standard polished response about resilience, confidence, and staying true to herself. The audience nodded, accepting the answer at face value. But Joy didn't stop there. She leaned in, voice softer now, but the edge unmistakable. "And what about when people say you're difficult to work with? That sometimes the persona we see on stage might not align with the person behind the music." The tension in the room spiked. Mariah's hand, resting delicately on her lap, clenched slightly before relaxing. Her smile became tighter, more controlled. She tilted her head, considering her response, then said, with a touch of irony, "Well, Joy, every artist has a story. People love to label things they don't understand. I think sometimes people take things out of context." But her tone carried the faintest hint of defensiveness, a subtle tremor beneath the polished exterior. The audience murmured, sensing that this exchange was no longer just about music or career highlights, it was about personality, perception, and ego. Joy's eyes sparkled, her smile now sharper, as she leaned forward slightly. "Out of context, sure. But when multiple reports and social media posts paint a consistent picture, don't you think it's worth addressing? Fans want transparency. They want honesty. Isn't that part of being a public figure?" Mariah's composure began to crack in the slightest, a flicker of irritation passing across her features. "Transparency," she echoed, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Joy, I am transparent. I have been open about my life, my career, my experiences. But you know as well as I do that not everything you read or hear is accurate." Her gaze shifted slightly toward the camera, as if reminding the audience that she was still in control, even under pressure. Yet the words, though carefully chosen, carried a sharpness. Joy, sensing the moment, pressed further. "Accuracy aside, though, there are patterns, aren't there? Comments, behaviors, incidents that people notice repeatedly. How do you respond to that perception? Or do you feel it's all blown out of proportion?" The studio felt taut, like a string ready to snap. Mariah's lips pressed together briefly, then parted with a soft sigh, almost imperceptible, before she responded. Joy, it's easy for people to assume things. The pressures, the expectations, the scrutiny, it's relentless. I do my best to live authentically, to care for my artistry and my fans. But sometimes, what's said about me isn't about me at all, it's about what people want to see. Her voice had regained a degree of calm, but the undercurrent of defensiveness remained. The audience shifted in their seats, some whispering, some fanning themselves nervously. Joy's smile didn't waver. She had Mariah exactly where she wanted, on edge, testing limits, revealing cracks. Joy leaned in further, lowering her voice slightly, a subtle challenge in her tone. Mariah, with all due respect, when people see diva-like behavior or cryptic messages on social media, it shapes their perception. You've built this amazing career, but even legends are human. Can we talk about those moments? About the times when fans felt disappointed or confused? Mariah's eyes narrowed, her composure visibly shaking for the first time. She straightened her shoulders, her hand lifting to smooth the edge of her gown, a reflexive gesture that betrayed tension. Disappointed or confused, she repeated sharply, Joy, this is exactly what I mean. Interviews like this, questions like this, assume the worst. It's disrespectful. I work hard, I care about my fans, and yet I am constantly challenged as if my intent is always wrong. The audience gasped collectively. The energy in the studio had shifted from curiosity to anticipation, a sense that something unpredictable was about to happen. The camera caught every subtle shift in Mariah's expression, the tightness of her jaw, the sharpening of her eyes, the slight tremor in her hands. Joy's posture remained poised, her smile now a calculated mix of amusement and challenge, as if daring Mariah to respond further. Respectfully, Mariah, she said, leaning closer, I'm not here to insult you. I'm here to ask questions the public wants answered. No one is above accountability, not even legends. Isn't it better to address these things directly rather than avoid them? The studio lights blazed as the cameras returned from commercial, but the air in the room was taut with anticipation, as if the audience itself were holding its breath. Everyone knew the first segment had been unusually intense, but no one was prepared for what was about to unfold. Mariah Carey returned to her seat, her steps measured, her sequined gown catching the studio lights like sparks of fire. She exuded glamour and poise, but the tension in her jaw and the narrowing of her eyes betrayed a simmering frustration that had yet to erupt. Joy Behar, sensing the shift, leaned forward slightly, her signature smirk still in place, as if daring Mariah to respond further. The audience leaned forward, some whispering to each other, some gripping their programs, phones at the ready, knowing that live television often delivered moments that would circulate endlessly online. Michael Strahan began the segment cautiously, his voice calm, professional, and steady. Mariah, welcome back. Let's continue talking about your new album and the inspiration behind some of the songs. Fans are excited to hear more from you. Mariah's eyes flicked toward him, a flash of irritation crossing her perfectly composed features. Michael, she said slowly, her voice smooth but tight, let's not pretend the only reason I'm here is to talk about music. You've spent the last segment trying to paint me in a way that I don't recognize. The audience gasped lightly, sensing the edge in her tone. I'm here to share my artistry, not to answer pointed questions designed to embarrass me on live television. Joy's smirk widened, unyielding, and she leaned in, her voice calm but sharp. Mariah, I'm not here to embarrass you. I'm here to ask questions the public is curious about. You're one of the biggest stars in the world. People want honesty. Is it too much to expect candor? Mariah's expression hardened, and the subtle tremor in her fingers as she rested them on her lap was visible to the attentive cameras. Candor, she repeated, her voice rising slightly, resonant with barely concealed frustration. Joy, candor is different from being put on trial. There's a line between questions and attacks, and you've crossed it. The audience shifted in their seats, murmuring softly. Some whispered about how unusual it was to see Mariah so visibly agitated, while others simply watched, captivated by the intensity of the unfolding drama. The tension escalated quickly. Joy, seemingly oblivious to the growing storm, pressed on. Mariah, with all due respect, being in the public eye means facing criticism. Fans and the media notice patterns. Diva behavior, social media posts, comments about other celebrities, these are part of your public image. Don't you think it's fair to address that? Mariah's composure snapped, her eyes flashing dangerously, the calm superstar persona cracking like thin ice. She stood abruptly, the sequins of her gown catching the studio lights as she gestured sharply toward Joy. "Fair," she shouted, her voice echoing in the studio.